Hi. Last time we talked about what depression is and some of the reasons why it might happen. And today I'm going to have a look at some of the things that can help. And I'm going to illustrate that from my own story. So our son is 22 now. And soon after he was born, so a long time ago now, I really was struggling. I was finding it difficult to function. I couldn't think straight. I felt weepy, irritable. It was hard to enjoy things. It was hard to be motivated. All the things I talked about last week. And I'd got to the point where I really felt that life was difficult to carry on with. And I had some friends who pointed out to me that actually maybe I was depressed. So I went to see my GP, my family doctor, and they said, yes, we think you're depressed. And they prescribed me some medication, one of the drugs called SSRIs, which work on serotonin levels. Now, as a doctor who believes that faith and medicine and go well together, and that there are lots of aspects around depression, I felt that I wanted to wait. I felt really uncomfortable about taking medication at that point because I almost felt like I wanted to work this through myself. I wanted to trust God. I wanted to work it through in a different way. But after 3 weeks of looking at my medication on a shelf, I decided to give it a go. And about 10 days after starting the medication, it was like a light went on in my head and I could think straight again. I could see more clearly. I felt more positive. It happened quite suddenly to the point where I felt quite shocked how much difference it made. So the first point is that medication can be really helpful. And for me, one of the key things it did was to help me function better. And that's something that I found with patients often, is that if someone's not functional, it's hard for them to just get themselves through the day and do the things they need to do, then medication can really help with that. And it can help you function, and it can get you to a place where you can start to address some of the other things that are going on. So the next thing for me was to start to think about some of those things. Why had I got in this situation? And I had some counselling, which I'd really recommend. Starting to talk with someone about your story, what we talked about last week, and noticing some of the key things in it. And for me, there were some key things from my past, key things about how I expressed emotion or didn't express emotion, and things that I'd kept stuffed down. So negative things, I felt like I couldn't be negative in front of people. I couldn't cry. I couldn't express sadness. And that I had to put on a front and look good and look as if I was okay, and to help others, but not acknowledge my own things. And I started to do that. I started to express my own pain, my own sadness, my own disappointments. And that was a therapeutic process. I also realised that I'd got lots of things in my thinking that weren't helpful. So I'd had repetitive ways of thinking negatively about myself and about situations. I had fear and anxiety, and lots of unhealthy patterns of thinking that I acknowledged and realised I needed to do something about. So I started to think about where those had come from and why they were there. And one of the key things for me was where I got my value from and where I got my identity from. And I realised that although I said I trusted God, although I said I had a faith, actually in practice I wasn't really trusting him, and I didn't really believe some of the things that I said I believed. And so I started to think, well, what do I really think is true? What is true? What is true? If it's true, I want to believe it. And I started to recognise that some of my patterns of thinking were just repetitive, negative lies that I'd believed. And so, a bit like a CBT process, I started to almost ignore the lies and the feelings that would come in my head, and noticing the things that I would say, and say, no, I'm not going that way. I'm going to turn around in a different direction, and I'm going to choose to believe what is really true, even if it doesn't feel true. So things like, I'm of value and worth even if I'm not producing something. I'm of value and worth whether I work or not. I'm of value and worth whatever other people may think or say about me. And And they're key things. And as that started to happen, I started to change in how I thought about myself. And along with all of this, I did some other things. I made sure that I exercised. I made sure that I got fresh air, that I started to eat better, that I rested better, and spent time with people who I knew were good for me rather than people who sucked things out of me in an unhealthy way. And over the months, I started to be much better as a whole. And I was able to stop my medication, and I've stayed well from a depression point of view since then. So I think some key things from my story that might help you. Medication can be really useful, but it doesn't solve everything. It's particularly helpful in helping you function well. It's really important to acknowledge pain and be emotionally honest, to think about our stories and think about where we've believed things as well that are not true, where we've had mindsets that are faulty, patterns of repetitive thinking that are actually lies. We need to be willing to want to change some of those things and to embrace that and to dare to do that. Friends who love us and are honest with us are really important. Rest, exercise, good diet, really important. Laughter, choosing to laugh at things and watch funny TV and listen to jokes and laughter is good for us. We know there's a therapeutic benefit in laughter. And starting to think about, what do I really believe? Where am I from? What's the universe about? What about God? Because actually knowing that there's someone bigger than us who's for us and who loves us and who's given everything for us and can help us makes an enormous difference. And if you've never thought about faith, if you've never thought about God, then maybe that's a lie as well. Maybe actually you've believed something and it's not true. It's good to question that, and it's good to search, and it's good to explore and be open to maybe truth is different to what you've thought previously. And in all of this as well, it's good to get checked out by the doctors, and there may be a medical health reason behind the depression as well. So sometimes blood tests and other things like that are really helpful to do. So I think the top things for today are, if you've recognised that you are struggling with depression, think about your story, think about help as a whole, not just the medication. And it is possible to get well, to get much better, and to be able to live with or even live free from depression. So keep hope.